Good morning, people. This is Duncan at Free as an Eagle. I'm going to do something a little different and unusual. Right now, I'm up at the A-frame on a beautiful day, the second of the heat wave, and it's going to get up around 90. So I came up with some thoughts on the NDE, the near-death experience thing. And the reason I did is lately I've been really struggling to process everything going on in the world. And based on the NDE thing, I found myself waking up with some strange dreams and disturbed about the condition of the world with the Iran attacks and everything else piled on all the other instability we've been compelled to deal with. And I read some posts on Facebook and began to think about it, and all of a sudden some things clicked that really helped me get my head back in line, because it's very easy to get disturbed when you're getting mired in the details and the deaths and the wars and the future and all these kind of difficult and disturbing things. And I realized sometimes you got to go back to first principles to get your head together. And for me, that meant realizing, based on near-death experience research and people's testimonies about it, focusing on the other side and what's really going on there can be very helpful to be grounded. And I'm going to ramble a little bit. I'm going to try to make this clear while it's in my mind. Sometimes I have these ideas and they go away before I get to record them, so I thought I'd make this peaceful. It's a beautiful day, no wind, and very nice out. So I'm just going to take a little hike through the woods while I talk, just so there's something to look at besides my aging face. I don't like selfies that much. I see this old guy on the other side of the screen. I don't really look like that, so I don't want to present myself that way. Ha ha. Anyway, so here's what I want to get into, is the idea from people that have had near-death experiences and come back. There's several things they say immediately. One of them is simply that they go to the other side and they see their past relatives and angels and Jesus in some cases and Buddha and different people, and basically say that one thing that first hits them is that we're all connected. And to me, that is one of the first principles that makes sense out of everything. And they also say that one of the major principles is simply that the two driving principles in this world are basically fear and love. And it basically boils down to those two things. And that fear kind of gives rise to all the negatives. And I know that sounds like an oversimplification, but when you think about it, it really makes sense, because fear is what drives people to see the world as a place where there's scarce resources, and we're in competition for those scarce resources, and we're at odds with each other. And when we're born on this earth, even though we're with people, there's a sense of disconnection. And one of the things they say is that we're all connected. So to me, that connectedness aspect, there's a cool little spider web down there, see if I can zoom it up. See some really cool things in nature. There it is. Isn't that cool? So I'm going to be getting distracted, but it's beautiful out here. So we're all connected, and that's one of the big takeaways. And nature, animals, people, all these things are on the other side, and in beautiful, vivid colors. And it's a very beautiful world. And even here on Earth, to me, it's a very beautiful world here. I love nature and the outdoors and hiking and all these kind of things. So damn it, I'm blocking my lens here. I'm going to try not to do that again. So we're in a beautiful world that was created. And, I won't get into that God thing too much, except to say that, people refer to God as source, creator, da-da-da-da-da, but that we're all connected. And even Jesus, didn't claim to be God as much as to say he's one of us, and he's come here to kind of represent us, and that we're all connected, and that we're all gods. That was one of his points in one of the scriptures he quoted. I think it's somewhere in Isaiah, saying that you are all gods. Doesn't your scripture say you're all gods? So, he's often referred to as an ascended master, someone that's kind of been through everything we're going through, and he's had to learn these lessons. And a lot of people claim also from NDE world that This is a learning planet. We're all here to learn, which I believe firmly. We're here to learn. There's lots of different lessons to be learned, and this is a training planet. It's a difficult planet to live on, and there are wars and all kinds of terrible things. And so getting back to the first principles mindset is simply that, we start out all connected. We start out on the other side. We come here and we have to yield up, kind of have to give up the memories of what we've done in the past in order to have this be a fresh experience and to learn from it and not have what happened in. And so a lot of people believe in prior lives, including NDE people. Many claim that, this is one of many experiences we're going to have, which I used to think reincarnation was an absurd concept, and my mom was into all this new agey stuff, and I thought she was a little bit out there with it. But the interesting thing is, over the last few years, I really started to take on the belief that there's a lot more to this life than just this one experience. There's a lot more to learn than we can learn in one life, and that we're all evolving towards something, which I like to refer to as enlightenment. To me, enlightenment is, basically the result of learning, and learning is about life more than just, academic or career type things that we have here in order to get through this life. Enlightenment is really spiritual in nature, and, learning about what life is all about and what it means. And so let me get back to the love thing. So to me, to simplify it down, love is the positive force that gives rise to everything constructive, and that it appreciates things, it wants to build up the world around it. And even the Bible, Paul in the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 13, I think is the love chapter, talks about love builds up. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. So people can learn a terrific amount and get puffed up on what they know, but love is the force that helps us to build other people up. And to me, to philosophize a little bit about what I think life is about, on the individual level, we're all separate, but we're all connected. So in an odd sense, we have sovereignty as individuals, and we're in training to become gods of sorts. In other words, we have the potential to be far more than we are, and we just have to sort of see that as a principle. And for me, as an individual, it's like we all have an obligation to learn how to cope with life, learn our philosophy. Developing a workable philosophy is sort of a survival thing to do, so you can get through this life without cracking and, live past all this stuff we're going through now. But I realize, with all this war stuff going on, it's very easy to get bogged down in the details of it and, get mired. And I realize the narrative that is controlled by people that are living in fear is all based on the fear view of life. Like if you're looking through a very dark pair of welding goggles, the world's going to be a very dark, black place. You're not going to see much light, and it's going to be kind of grim. And on the other hand, you put on your rose-colored glasses, you're looking through, something that makes the world brighter and prettier. And even though that's kind of simplistic, the idea being, if you're looking at the world through the lens of fear, then you're in competition with everything and everybody. And there's a certain amount of scarce resources, land, money, food, love and affection, whatever you're looking for. And now you have to claim and defend and own and do all these things that are really almost an illusion. The idea that, the world's a fearful, negative place. Other people are all competing too. And here's a interesting thought I've had, and I realize it's very true, is fear tends to put people in a mode where they want to control everything. Fearful people tend to be the controlling people because they want to lock everything down and be absolutely certain. Even people that want to know exactly what the truth is want to lock it down and codify it and make everybody conform to it so that it makes their world more secure and less fearful. They know what everything is about or have control over resources. And fear gives rise to this hierarchic concept. Let's flip over to love for a minute. So Jesus said, you're all brothers. Don't call anyone master or teacher. You're all brothers. You're all at the same level. But the human tendency, operating from a fear perspective, is to try to gain control and that usually involves trying to subject other people to your control, and especially people that have an aggressive tendency want to control everything and set up hierarchies where it's top down and they're always on top, of course, where they're giving orders to other people and they can become more secure by being on top of a pyramid. And so inequality is a byproduct of fear. People that want to have control or exploit others, it gets crazy, like slavery and any type of system that creates inequality and makes people amass power or money so that they have control over the world and its resources. That builds a sense of security. But again, this is all not love. Love builds up, and in a world governed by love, you have people that, I try to adopt and live by this philosophy myself. Like when you have kids, if you're thinking properly, you want to see them do well. My attitude is I always want to see my kids get past me, like almost like a relay race where you hand off the baton when you start to slow down to somebody that's fresh and has energy and can move ahead a little further. And I love my kids dearly, and I want to see them succeed and prosper. So I want to see them do better than I did, and they're doing that. I have 2 boys and my daughter. They're all out doing their own things and manifesting their own lives. And the beauty of it is they're doing things I was scared to do. I was governed by fear as a kid. I grew up with an older brother that was mentally ill and got picked on, and excuse me, I'm inhaling bugs here. A lot of bugs out today. But so I grew up with a lot of fear going on, watching my brother get bullied and not trusting people and not socializing properly. And so I had kind of a warped childhood that way, and I never wanted to pass that along. And luckily my kids are musicians. They're out there in front of hundreds of people and doing very well, and they're not afraid, and they're good with people, and doing, getting on stage in front of people and playing music. That's something I was scared to death to do. I tried it. I was scared to death. I didn't have an understanding of, why I was so scared of it, but I think it was conditioning from when I was younger. Oh, I'm getting a little out of breath already in this heat and humidity. It's not even that hot yet, but God, it's beautiful out here though. All these ferns, look at this. This is gorgeous. I feel like I'm in a jungle. I haven't been down in here in the summer before. I bought this property a couple of years ago and I'm working on my little A-frame, but I haven't been down here in full ferndom. It's beautiful. But anyway, trying to think where I was a second ago. So yeah, so seeing my kids do better than me does my heart good. I feel, wow, And I say to people, based on a very sentimental, sappy song that I like, is the idea is, if you can't fly as high as you want to, maybe you can be the wind beneath someone else's wings, help them launch and go to where they can. So I see life as an opportunity for every one of us to manifest our best, and to manifest our best selves and become what we're meant to be and learn all we can really requires a support system of people that encourage and walk in love, so that they are willing to sacrifice and give up on behalf of others, not to try to control or exploit them. And so to me, the fear-driven world involves exploitation, top-down hierarchic structures that give people more control over resources and over other people, and ultimately this results in conflicts, wars. Some people, like my attitude, to philosophize this, is an ideal world you would see everybody else as equals, brothers, sisters, whatever, and negotiate with them and say, hey, I see you have needs, basically the same kind of needs I have. Let's talk about how to meet everybody's needs so we all can have our needs met and get along. We're all connected. We, by nature, we need to recognize that, we all got to share this world and that everything's connected, and that if we work together, we can all have prosperity. There's no lack of resources. It's not a win-lose. It's not an either-or. It's not an us versus them. We're all connected. We're all of equal importance. So, that is a good hippie philosophy that I kind of like to have adopted. And what was I going to say? I had another point I was going to make and I lost it in translation. But to carry on with the idea, I know what it is. So there's a concept called Win-Win or No Deal that I want to expound on a tiny bit, because I try to live by this philosophy, and it works as a part of a love idea. I'm walking back up the hill, but I'm going to get out of breath, so I'm going to park here for a minute. So win-win or no deal is a philosophy where if two of us come together and we have a problem to solve or needs to meet, we basically say, let's try to come up with a plan where we both win. Your needs are met, my needs are met. We both walk away happy. Might involve some give and take, some compromise, but if we can make this thing work, let's do it. And if for some reason we can't make it work, or another person sees this as a win-lose kind of thing, then we won't make a deal. Because to me, fear gives rise to a win-lose mentality. People that are out there that have a very powerful competitive mindset, becomes win-lose, us versus them, and scarce resources, we can't both win, kind of thing like that, which, isn't really the truth. Because on this earth, there are enough resources. If they're taken care of well, if we're good stewards of what we have, there's no reason we can't all get along and make things work and negotiate things out and not have to have these top-down hierarchies, not have to have, even the border thing, that's an issue. It's an issue because it wasn't managed properly and it needed to be addressed somehow. And again, that needed to be set up in such a way that we could continue to allow immigrants to come in who we all are or descended from in America pretty much, and we displaced the Native Americans. So, we need to be able to say, hey, there's room for everybody, and we can, if we're careful about what we do with resources, we can make them go pretty far. So, on the other hand, this whole idea of taking over other people's property and fighting and all this kind of stuff, isn't the way to go. So, the win-win philosophy to me is the one way to make things work for everybody, and in business and anything at all. You don't have to make deals. You don't have to do things. But if everybody in the party can find a way to make it work for everybody where we all benefit, then it's worth going with that. So, I see that as in relationships too. You can meet a person of, whoever your partner might want to be, and over time you begin to see if whether you can make a thing work. If there's enough in it for both of you and you can make compromises that make the relationship work, terrific. If you have enough common interests and what have you, you can make it work. And if not, then sometimes you just have to say, what, I respect you as a person, I really like you, but I don't see this working in the long haul. We just don't have enough in common, but that's okay. We can still be friends. We can still respect each other and move on and find somebody that really we can work with, because that's an extreme example, but a valid one. Anyway, just wanted to share those ideas with you while they're floating around in my head. And, the reason this came to me is, I got up in the morning and I was a little worried. Yesterday I had a great day. I was relaxed. I could focus on what I was doing, and I got a lot done in the morning, and I got hot later, so I quit work and relaxed and floating around the pool, hanging out. Today is a hot one, and it's already getting hot, but I'd woken up kind of with a disturbed mind, and I realized, if you focus on the details of all the death and destruction of war, all the negatives, it's going to bring you down. It's going to be hard to get focused on, the day-to-day things you've got to do, and regardless of what's going on in the world around us, we still got to get up and have our coffee or tea or whatever, make the bed, get the day going, and so you've got to find a way to set aside some of the things that might otherwise bother you. And for me this morning, I was like, God, what am I going to do with all this? And then I read somebody's comment to a Facebook post, and I'm like, what? It was very insightful, and they were kind of touching on some of these concepts, and I'm like, that's the whole deal. Go back to basics. Fear will bring hopelessness and despair and feeling like, oh my God, what can we do? And we're doomed. But on the other hand, it's like, wait a minute, we're here on this planet to learn. We are learning, we're evolving, and we don't have to participate in what I'd say is the darkness. We don't have to participate in that. We can kind of hold our own and say, ultimately we know love is the answer, and that sounds very simplistic, but when you dig down deep and realize what love actually is, it's not just a sappy emotion, that's part of it. But a lot of it is what can we do that's constructive and positive and uplifting, and what's beyond this life. It's a lot bigger than this. This will pass. This, many generations, hundreds of years, millennia have passed. Countries have risen and fallen. So we're, in a part of a cycle of people learning, and every generation's got to learn the same basic lessons. People that lived 1,000 years ago had to learn these same lessons we're learning today, and people that are here today are learning these same lessons. So all of us are going to come away from this experience a little wiser than we were, hopefully. But the other thing is seek wisdom, like the Bible says in many places. And I was a hardcore Christian for a long time, and then I got into a cult-like Christian circle, and I many years later realized it was fear-driven. Christian churches can go off the rails by becoming fear-driven to the point where they want to lock down the truth and the laws and start obeying laws and imposing punishments, and you can create a snitch culture and all kinds of unhealthy things. The whole idea is meant to be love. It's meant to be quite a bit more simple than all that. So, setting up hierarchies and control, those are all fear-driven motives. So once I realized that, it kind of set me free. I'm like, you know what? I'm a free agent now. Guess what? I'm in church right now. I'm out in nature. Nature's beautiful. This is what the Creator created, and I'm part of it, and I love it. So I can be happy out here, and it's therapeutic just to be out here and enjoy nature. It's absolutely beautiful. So this is part of my therapy, just enjoying nature and realizing I'm part of something bigger than all this. Wars will come and go. People will come and go. Tyrants, dictators, all these kinds of things will come and go. We're here to learn. This will all come to an end at one point or another. So, I believe it's valid to pray and keep your peace and keep your perspective and, do your best, speak out, protest, whatever you feel driven to do that might help you to deal with the situation. Do it. And for me, it's always be learning. What can I learn from this? How can I make the situation better? That sort of thing. Try to stay positive in terms of what you can do. If you feel like you can't do anything, well, just say a prayer and go about your business and do it well. Be diligent in what you have to do. Take care of your people. Live every day to the fullest. Realize you can only live one day at a time. You don't have a choice. You can't live tomorrow today, and you can't live yesterday over again. All you can do is pick up today and make the best of it, and, take care of your people, take care of yourself, and, put your mind to the task. And one odd little philosophic thought that I had a little while back when things look pretty shaky is, hey, even if it's pure futility, even if you're never going to see the end of what you're doing, even if you might face ultimate complete failure, do it anyway to the best of your ability. It'll make you a better person. You'll learn from it. And who knows? Most of our fears are never realized. That's another thing to think of. Most of our fears are never realized. So if you're hopeful and try to make something good happen today, plant some trees, plant some flowers. You may never live to see them grow, but you might. And if not you, maybe somebody else. So in the end, we're all going to exit this planet, and we will still be alive. We'll leave the body behind, whether it's today or in 50 years or 100 years. You're not going to take your body, your money, your property with you. Make good use of it now. And then when you exit here, you have your own mind, your conscience, your friends. There's certain things you're going to have with you. So, and I'll end on a note that I remember when my dad passed away back in 2008. He was on his deathbed, and I could tell he was pretty close to the end there. At one point he looked over and he said, well, I'm getting ready to take my toys and go home. And I looked at him and I realized this was a very potentially valuable moment. I said, well, Dad, what's your toys? And he said, oh, my memories, my relationships, my friendships. I could tell he was ready. He really had peace, But he knew that when he left, he'd leave the world behind, the body behind, but his relationships, his memories, what he'd learned here, those are the things he was going to take with him. So that gave me hope, and I pray when my time comes, I have the grace on me that he had on him. But, he was at peace. That was what was important. So with that, I will close this little chat, and I'll talk to you again soon. Have a good day.